I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. This is brave, this is bruised, this is who I'm meant to be, this is me.
Please pause your conversations. Okay, I want to start out by actually thanking a group of people who helped bring our guest speaker here today, and that's Southwest Michigan and our ETS affiliate, who actually helps a lot of our students who are looking to be career and college ready. And again, I want to thank them for bringing our guest speaker here on behalf of our school to help bring a message to our students. One of the things that we've been emphasizing to you over the course of your career here is making choices. And our guest speaker, who I'm going to introduce in a second, has been around the world sharing his story about some concerns that he has that he wants to bring to your attention that he's actually lived through. And he's been not only around the world, but he's been around all around the United States, sharing his message to students all around the country. As a matter of fact, he actually came from Ireland when he grew up. His family immigrated here to the United States and settled down in New Jersey, in the Philadelphia area. And right now he resides in Nashville, Tennessee with his wife. So I have to say he's done a lot of presentations and he's shared a lot of messages about the dangers of what alcohol and addiction can cause students at a young age. But also he's going to be sharing information about a new substance that is extremely dangerous that a lot of our students are really not familiar with, that's becoming a large epidemic around this nation, including Dwajak. So I'd like to introduce him and have him kind of share his message with you. His name is Michael DeLeon. So let's welcome Michael DeLeon here to help us out with his presentation.
Good morning. Good morning. How's it going? Who's tired? Go to bed earlier, yo. Go to bed earlier. Don't be up playing Fortnite till 2 a.m. in the morning, you know what I'm saying? Be on Instagram, Snapchat, TokTik, and Twister. So, listen, my name's Michael. I live in, my house is in Nashville. I've only been home 13 days this whole year. 13 days. I'll be home the 24th and 25th, and then I'm going to get on the 26th. So I'll be home 15 days this entire year. And the reason I do that is because I'm on a mission, right? I really am. I'm not here to beat you in the head. I love 8th graders. I can get real with you a little bit more so than the 6th and 7th graders. You need to listen to me, right? I'm not here to beat you in the head. I'm not wasting your time. I'm not wasting mine. Your teachers need you in a classroom for that important learning time, and your administration felt that it was important enough to take you away from learning time to give you some real-life information. And I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't beat around the bush. I get real. And I'm telling you, what I'm about to share with you is the truth. Now, truth is a funny thing in America. I mean, depending on what side of the coin you fall on. I mean, watch Fox News for an hour. Watch CNN for an hour. Try to figure out where the truth is, right? Truth to one person might not be truth to another person. But I'm going to give you the truth and reality of all my years of experience. And I'm not going to beat around the bush, man. I'm going to tell you how it is. In 2007, I was released from New Jersey State Prison. I spent 12 years in prison, 12 years. From 1995 to 2007, I was locked up in New Jersey State Prison, right? And it wasn't what my parents raised me to become. It wasn't what my teachers, my coaches, my administrators raised me to become. It's what I became. Because of the choices and the decisions that I made. I became a methamphetamine addict. I became a heroin addict. I was an alcoholic. I abused drugs. I got involved in criminal activity. I got involved in gang activity. And I ended up in prison for 12 years. And if you think it's easy to get up in front of students every day and share that horrible reality, it's not. I'm ashamed of the choices and the decisions that I made. And I didn't bring honor to God, and I didn't bring honor to my parents, and I definitely didn't bring honor to myself. I got involved in drugs and crime and gangs, and I ended up in prison. Now, I've been married to my wife for 27 years. I married this redhead from West Virginia. I married her anyway. That was a lot funnier in my head. I've been married for 27 years to this girl. And for 12 of those 27 years, my wife, she sat in a folding chair in a prison visit hall every Sunday for 1 hour, visiting me. And I can tell you, that's not the marriage she signed up for. My wife didn't deserve that. Now, I have 2 kids. They grew up without their father in their life. It wasn't fair to them. And I sat in school just like some of you. Know everything. Hard head. Had to have it to, yeah, I'm talking to you. Yeah. I had to have teachers come redirect me all the time. I had to have teachers tell me things over and over and over again. I was that kid who couldn't understand why I kept failing, or why I was getting bad grades, or why I was always the one in trouble. My principal would come to my classroom every single day asking me about something that went on. Why? Because I was usually the one in trouble. But if someone's having to come redirect you all the time, if someone's having to come talk to you all the time, maybe there's an issue. And see, I can trace my prison experience all the way back between 5th and 6th grade. Between 5th and 6th grade, my entire life changed. You see, people say, well, how'd you end up in prison? Why'd you start using drugs in the first place? I can tell you where my entire life changed between 5th and 6th grade. I moved to America when I was 5, 6 years of age. I was the happiest kid in the world. I got straight A's. I went to a Catholic school, wore a uniform, little checkered tie, and I used to go home. The teachers would stick these 100 stickers on your tie when you got 100s on quizzes or tests, and I'd be like, yo, ma, 100 again. Like, I was straight A student. Perfect attendance was on my bucket list, yo. I had a little brother, little sister, and everybody got along. I had the happiest family in town. We were the poorest family in town, trust me. I mean, I can tell you what a wish sandwich is, when you had 2 pieces of bread and you just wished there was something between them, you know? I never had new clothes, ever. We were poor. But I didn't really even know we were poor. I know, looking back, I knew we were poor. We were poor, but I didn't even know. I was happy. We were happy. I was the happiest kid in the world. And somewhere between 5th and 6th grade, my parents decided they didn't love each other anymore, and they just got divorced. And they just split right up. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but my whole world was ripped in shreds. And I went from straight A's to D's and F's. I went from never getting in trouble in elementary school to getting kicked out of class and suspended from school. Yo, I was putting my hands on people and flipping desks over and cursing teachers out because I didn't know what to do with what was in here. And I didn't know what to do with what was in here. And I really hated God, and I hated my parents, and I hated my life, and I hated myself. Maybe you don't understand, or maybe you don't think it's a big deal. How many of y'all know some friend whose parents are divorced? How many of y'all have a friend whose parents are divorced, and you know your friend's really struggling with that because of what's going on at home? How many of you have a friend, it's the holidays, Christmas is coming up, and Christmas isn't that Hallmark Lifetime channel at home? Right. I was in Mississippi a couple months ago, and I got to the school real early. I was like there at 8 o'clock in the morning. The presentation started at 9:30, right? So the secretary says, the principal will be with you in a minute. He's in a meeting. Have a seat. And there's this long line of chairs along the wall. And I go over and I sit down and wait for the principal to come get me. And at the end of the rows, there's this kid. He's got his arms folded. He's got this mean look on his face. You know, it's like steam's coming out of his ears. He's so mad. So as I go over to the line of chairs, I say, hey, man, good morning. How's it going? He didn't say nothing. I was like, man, how's it going, man? Good morning. Trying to get him to talk. Nope, nothing. So the secretary says, Mr. Johnson, why don't you tell our guest why you're getting sent home from school? And I was like, sent home, dude? Didn't school just start? Nothing. She goes, well, I'll tell you why he's getting sent home. Seems Mr. Johnson this morning didn't want to get up to the front of the classroom. The teacher was asking him to come up to the front of the classroom to recite something. He didn't want to go, so he flips his desk over and curses his teacher out. I was like, dang, man, you don't like that teacher or something? When I said that, he finally spoke up. He said, nah, she's actually my favorite teacher. I was like, you cursed out your favorite teacher, man? So I know something's up, something's going on. So I moved down a couple chairs closer to him, and I start whispering to him, and I ask him, what's going on? What's up, man? Everything all right? What's going on? And I find out that the night before, police were called to his house. His father was removed in handcuffs, and his mother was rushed to the hospital. His aunt has to come over and get him and his 2 little brothers on the bus in the morning. Now she's at the hospital with her sister, his mom. She's in surgery. It's very serious. And now she's having to leave the hospital to come pick this kid up because he's getting suspended. And I was like, oh my gosh, man, that's horrible. That would be hard for me to deal with. Like when you came to school today, did you ask to see the principal, tell him what was going on? No. Did you ask to see the counselor, man, ask her to sit down with you, talk to you? No. That teacher you cursed out, man, did you tell her what was going on at home? Maybe she wouldn't have been pressing you to get up and talk to the class. He says, no. Just then the principal walks out. He says, come on, Mr. DeLeon, I'll take you out to the auditorium. We'll start your presentation. I said, could I have 1 minute of your time first? He said, what? Just 1 minute. Can I talk to you for a second? So he brings me into his office, and we have a conversation, right? And I told him what I learned. Now, I'm not as smart as a teacher. Trust me, I am not as smart as a teacher. I don't have some ability that counselors don't have. But you see, I'm this safe person from far away. Anyone in this room ever find it easier to talk to someone you don't know about something that you're going through than someone who's close to you? Raise your hand. Of course. So I'm this person from far away, and I listened to this kid. I wouldn't stop asking until he told me what was going on, and he dumped it all on me. The principal said, we had no idea. I said, of course you didn't. He didn't tell anybody. He says, have a seat. I'll be right back. He tells the secretary, call the aunt, tell her to stay at the hospital. They're going to handle this. And they take the kid down to the counselor. And so I go do my 2 assemblies, and I'm done, and I'm walking out of the school, right? And as we're walking down the hallway, we walk past the counselor's office, and the counselor's door opens, and he sees me walking by, and he goes, hey, mister. And I turn around, I said, yeah? He goes, man, thank you. Thank you. And he starts choking up and crying. I was like, bro, absolutely no problem, man. I'm so glad I asked. I'm so glad I wouldn't let up until you told me. But that woman that's standing right next to you, your counselor, she's here every day. She's in your life every single day. Talk to her. It really meant a lot to me what happened that day, because when I went from straight A's to D's and F's in 6th grade, I never got in trouble in elementary school. Now I'm getting suspended from school because of what was going on at home. See, I didn't know what to do with what was in here, and I didn't know what to do with what was in here. I had this counselor. Her name was Mrs. Cogan. Coolest lady ever, man. She looked just like Betty Boop. And she came to me and she pulled me out of class and she says, Michael, how's it going at home? And I didn't want to talk about it because talking about it hurt. So I put my hand up in her face and I said, I'm good. She said, you're not good, Michael. I want to talk to you about what's going on at your house. I'm good. They tried to get my coaches to talk to me. I'm good, coach. I'm good. They tried to get my principal. I'm good. I'm good. But I wasn't. I wasn't good. I wasn't good at all. I needed to talk to someone, but I shut everybody out. Anybody ever not want to talk about something that you're going through? Anybody ever not want to talk about it? Has an adult in this building ever asked you when you came to school and you're struggling with something at home, and then an adult ever said to you, how are you today? And you said, fine, but you weren't fine. Raise your hand if you said fine and you're not fine. Okay. Well, raise your hand if you got a friend whose parents are divorced and that kid's kind of caught in the middle. That sometimes parents turn into real complicated individuals and they use kids against each other. Okay. Raise your hand if you got a friend who's, coming up with the holidays, and the holidays isn't going to be that Hallmark Channel that moment, right? It's just going to be bad at home. I get it. Sometimes maybe the struggles that you're having in schools because of the struggles that you have at home, and that was my situation. And so the principal says to my mom, you got to get somebody to talk to your son. You see what's going on with you and your husband's affecting your child, his grades, his behavior. You got to get somebody to talk to him. So my mom's great idea was to run me down to our church, and Father Kramer said, well, I'll counsel your son. And his idea of counseling was sexually abusing me, and I got molested by a priest for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. It's always silent in the room when I say that. The big elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. And if you think I wanted to talk about that, yeah, I didn't. It stopped as I'm walking into high school, and I was interested in girls, so what girl was going to want to date the weird kid? You think any of my teammates would have threw their arm around me and said, don't worry, dude, we get it. We understand. It'll be okay. Are you kidding me, man? I would have been the freak. So I shut up. I kept it to myself. And I had these two well-meaning Irish uncles that wanted to make sure that that didn't affect me for the rest of my life, that I grew up to be the man that they expected me to be. So they beat me into manhood. All 4 years of high school, I got beat half to death by two uncles. I remember my sophomore year. I couldn't wrestle that year. My uncle Seamus punched me so hard in the face, broke my eye socket. I told the principal that I fell off my skateboard. I told my coach that I fell down a flight of stairs. I guess the principal and the coach got together and the stories didn't jive, so they confronted me after school. What's the real story? I said, no, man, the real story is I fell off my skateboard, skateboarding downstairs. I learned how to become a good liar. I really did. I learned how to lie to everybody. And I learned how to push everybody away. You see, I know not all of us have that perfect family at home, mom and dad, right? Or we live with our parents or our grandparents or aunts and uncles, or we have foster care or family friends, man. I get it. I totally get it. Gee, why are you talking about this? This is supposed to be about vaping. Yeah, it is. See, the number one cause of death in Michigan is drugs. The number one cause of accidental death in Michigan is a drug overdose. That's true for all 50 states. The state I live in now, the state I lived in before, all across the country, we have a problem. We have a problem. But drugs aren't the problem. See, drugs are the symptom of the problem. And I've worked for 12 years trying to stop the problem, trying to solve the problem, testified before Congress, did all sorts of things, movies, documentaries, everything. I believe the only way we're going to stop this problem is between 6th and 12th graders, your generation. Your generation is going to become the generation that ends addiction. If you don't, we're not going to solve this problem ever. We're doomed. And I didn't talk to the people who I had in my life about what was going on in my life, and I pushed everybody away. And you have people in your life that are there for you. Your counselors, your administrators. You have people in your life. Maybe you have a youth pastor or a priest, or maybe you have a law enforcement hero or somebody in your life that's there for you. You need to make sure that you keep them there. You need to make sure that you use them and utilize them. You need to make sure that you ask for help if you're struggling with something. Because my answer was my friend. He came to me, he said, man, you're stressed out. I go, yeah, you have no idea. And he hands me a pack of cigarettes. He was about 3 years older than me. It's such a bad idea to hang out with people who are older than you. Stupid, okay? Worst thing you could ever do as a kid, but we don't talk about that enough. I'm hanging out with some older kids, and he said, here, man, this will handle your stress. And he hands me a pack of cigarettes. Who in this room has ever heard that cigarettes help with stress? Raise your hand if you know some adult that says, oh, I smoke to calm my nerves. Yeah, what a lie. The big lie we tell ourselves. Nicotine is a stimulant, doesn't calm anything. But anyway, that's the lie people tell themselves. Well, he hands me a pack of cigarettes, and I started smoking. I was 11. I was 11 years of age. And hanging out with him and his older friends, I started drinking. I was 11, drinking alcohol. And I hate when people say marijuana is not a gateway drug. Like, sometimes it's a social gateway drug. You hang out with kids who are drinking, sooner or later someone in that group's got weed, and it's only a matter of time before you say yes. And I started smoking weed. I was 12 years of age. Nicotine and alcohol at the age of 11, marijuana at the age of 12, and popping pills that weren't for me at 15, cocaine at 17, heroin at 18, meth at 19. 12 years in prison. Now, you don't think that's going to be your story. Nobody does. Is there anyone in this room that when you grow older, you're going to go to prison? Raise your hand if you're going to prison when you get older. Raise your hand. Anybody going to prison? Nobody, huh? Anybody going to be homeless on the street, like living in Kalamazoo or Detroit, like sitting in a box, living on the sidewalk? Anybody? Anybody going to be living in a tent, a heroin addict, dead at the age of 20, 25? Anybody? Nobody, huh? Nobody. It's not going to be your story. I do about 700 schools this year. I'll do 707 schools this year. Wherever I go into jails and prisons. I do. I go to federal prisons. I'm going to 2 prisons in Colorado tomorrow. I'm going to 2 prisons the next day. I go to prisons all over the country in addition to schools because I have educational programs that I bring into jails and prisons to help men and women turn their life around, change the way they think. Because 90% of every woman in prison and 80% of every man in prison is a parent. So who's really affected by their incarceration? Who? Who's really affected by divorce? Who's really affected by incarceration of parents? There you go. Raise your hand if you know someone who's got locked up before because of drugs and alcohol. Huh. Raise your hand if you know someone who, because of drug and alcohol addiction, right, they went to jail or prison, then they came home. Then they went back again to jail and prison for drugs and alcohol, right? Raise your hand if you know someone who's died from drugs or a drug overdose. Look, you ask any adult in this building and ask them, when you were our age, if somebody asked that question, would your peers have raised your hands like that? Raise your hand again if you know someone who's died from drugs or a drug overdose. Look, okay, it's 90% of this room. Pretty bad problem in Michigan. Very bad problem in Michigan. And what did Michigan just do to solve the problem? Legalize marijuana. Yeah, really good idea. Not. You have to understand something. I'm here because of you. I'm here because I care about you. Every student in this room. I don't tell adults how to be adults. If someone 21 years of age and older wants to drink or do drugs, I don't have an opinion. I don't tell adults how to be adults. Raise your hand if you know an adult, 21 years of age and older. They drink alcohol responsibly. They have a glass of wine with dinner. They have a beer at the game. They have a drink once in a while. Raise your hand if you know an adult that's drinking responsibly. Okay, now raise your hand if you know an adult that drinks alcohol, and dude, they really need to quit drinking alcohol. They got a problem with alcohol. Wow, more hands, huh? Isn't that funny? How old you got to be to drink alcohol in Michigan? So raise your hand if you know a high school kid drinking alcohol. Raise your hand if you know a high school kid smoking weed. Raise your hand if you know a high school kid vaping or JUULing. Yo, raise your hand if you know a middle school kid vaping or JUULing. Huh. The most laughter, huh? You guys think that's funny, and I know why you do. It's not Western Michigan. It's not Michigan. It's everywhere I go. Every state I go to, I've spoken in every state I go to. I ask the same questions. I get the same response. Same hands. You guys think it's funny. September, I was in a school, 7th and 8th graders. I had about 1,600 kids in the auditorium, right? And as they were fanning out after the assembly, this 7th grader walks over to me. And he's like, sir, interesting presentation. It was really good, actually. But I just want to let you know one thing. I just vaped the juice, dog. And I said, you just vaped the juice, dog, did you call me? He goes, yeah, man, mango. Huh, mango. Where do you get your pods? My older brother gets them for me. Yeah? How old's he? 16. Kid, how old are you? 12. Ooh, you're 12 with a mango vape. Does mommy know you have a vape? Man, no, my mom doesn't know, and he sticks it back in his pocket and heads off to class, right? And it's the same thing with marijuana. I was in a juvenile detention center in Alabama a few months ago. I had this 17-year-old kid. I had 19 kids in a group. There was 19 kids locked up on this wing, and I was talking to them. And this one 17-year-old kid, he's locked up with 2 counts of vehicular homicide. Yeah, he's facing 30 years for 2 counts of vehicular homicide. And he starts arguing with me about weed. I wasn't even talking about weed. He starts arguing with me about marijuana. He goes, it's a plant, man. It comes from God. Okay. So does poison ivy. Do you roll around in that? He goes, no, man, that's stupid. Oh, that's stupid. He goes, you're a Christian, aren't you? I go, yes. I don't know what that has to do with anything. But 100% absolutely, I'm a Christian. Well, marijuana's in your Bible. It is? I missed that verse. Which one is it? He says it's in Genesis. All the plants of the earth are ordained by God. The Bible's talking about marijuana in that verse? Come on, man, it's like a vegetable. It should be on the food pyramid. I said the food pyramid, huh? At the age of 17, he didn't even have a full license, okay? He's on a permit, supposed to have a licensed driver in the car. But I guess if you're over your friend's house smoking weed, you don't want your mom and dad in the car on your drive home, right? So he's driving and he gets to a stoplight. And instead of stopping, he plows right through. And coming the other way at that very second was a 27-year-old woman. And he T-boned her car and he killed her instantly. And the reason he has 2 counts of vehicular homicide is because she was pregnant. And sitting in the back seat was her 6-year-old daughter who lost her right eye in the accident. And I wonder about that little girl. I haven't met her, but I wonder about her every day since I met this kid. What's that little girl going to go through in middle school with an eye patch under her glasses all day? Does anyone in this room think some little middle school kid's going to come up with a real creative name to bully the girl with one eye? Look at that. Does that bother anybody in this room that we're going to bully a girl with one eye? And so that's why it makes me sick about bullying, why we use racial words on each other, disparative terms to each other. It makes me sick, but I understand why, because we have leadership in this country that are clowns, okay? They're not Congress people, they're clowns. And you guys see this garbage on TV and the media divides us. You're the only hope our country has. You're the only hope our world has. 6th through 12th graders, you can end this garbage racial disparity. You can end this social disparity. You can end this stuff. You can end bullying. And you're going to have to end addiction. You're going to have to be the generation that does it. See, here's this kid who's facing 30 years, and he's joking about marijuana. And he's the kid who took an eye out of a girl and killed an unborn child and a woman, and he's facing 30 years. And he says to me, man, even if I get 30, I'll be out when I'm 47. I said, that is some glass half full kind of optimism right there, son. 30 years, you're going to be out when you're 47. You see, you're in 8th grade. And we tell you, us adults tell you, that your choices and decisions affect your health. And you don't believe it. You don't. You don't believe it. Not only did I go to prison for 12 years because of drug addiction, criminal involvement, gang involvement, I got cancer twice. I look back on my mother's side and my father's side, 2 generations, no one's had cancer. Nowhere in my family, I'm the first. And I studied my cancer with Johns Hopkins University for 2 years. I know for a fact drugs caused my cancer. Drugs caused my cancer. I know for a fact we found out, right? If you'd have told me at 11 when I started smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol, or 12 when I was smoking weed, you sat me down and said, Michael, you will get cancer because of this, and you might die. I don't know that I would have listened. I don't know that I would have listened. I wish I could find that out. I wish I could have found that out. I can't go back and make a new life. I have to live with the consequences of the choices and the decisions that I've made. All I can do is tell you what happened to me so it doesn't happen to you. But some of you in this room, you will not listen. You will not listen. I was told that there was a handful of 8th graders in this room that probably wouldn't listen to me. And I've found every single one of you. I've been doing this a long time. I scan the entire audience. I see who's listening to me. I see who's paying attention. I see who's ignoring me. I see who's talking to the person next to them or behind them. I see who's falling asleep. I see you because you're me. That was me. You were me. And that's why I got cancer twice. And that's why I have the life I have. See, because I had coaches and my father used to say, Michael, the choices and the decisions are going to affect you the rest of your life. And I was like, yeah, you don't know anything. I know everything. I was wrong. See, I'm an ex-convict, ex-felon, ex-offender, however you want to call it. If I went to your Board of Education to pick up a job application today, they wouldn't let me shovel. I wouldn't be able to mop your hallways, empty your trash. I couldn't be a janitor at your school. I couldn't do anything in a school district. Can't work for a school. I go into 700 schools a year because of my background, right? My future is affected by the choices and the decisions that I made, but you don't believe it'll happen to you. It's okay. Your choices affect your family. I didn't consider my family 1 minute when I was doing the things I was doing. This is my family. That's the redhead in the middle. That's my wife. I'm so in love with that girl, it's not even funny, yo. That girl's my world, man. I love that girl more now than the day I met her. She's my world. I love my wife. The girl on the left, that's my daughter, Kayla Marie. I like her a little bit. No, I love her with my whole heart and soul, but 3 years ago, my daughter broke my heart. You will not believe what she did to me. I swear, it's unbelievable what she did to me. You know what my daughter did to me? She got married. No, but listen, it was a traumatic experience, right? I said, you need to be mature enough to get married. She goes, how old is mature enough? I go, 40. She goes, 40? I'll be too old to get married. I'm older than 40, Kayla. I know I'll be too old like you. I was like, seriously? I did everything I could to sabotage that wedding. I really did. So anyway, that's my hero. He's my son, but I don't call him my son. The kid's my hero. He did 6 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's in the reserves in North Carolina. That boy's my hero. And if I didn't have the God I serve, if I didn't have that redhead to raise those 2 kids through all my years of addiction and incarceration, I wouldn't have been able to walk this girl down the aisle. I wouldn't. I wouldn't have these 2 little munchkins in my life either, right? Little angels from God. And I know you're not supposed to have a favorite grandkid, but Aniston's my favorite. She is. She's number 1. Wyatt goes, is Aniston your favorite, Grandpa? Yes, she is. My wife is like, don't tell him that, right? She's just the best. She loves everything. And so, anyway, there's this 8-year-old grandson, Wyatt. He's all right. Anybody ever babysat an 8-year-old kid? You know what I'm talking about. I love him. He's hard-headed, but I love him. So Kayla thinks she's so mature to get married. She thinks she can have a baby in the first year of marriage. Little Harper came along. I was like, you couldn't have waited a little while to have a kid, 10, 15 years before you had a kid? But then I realized who she has to look up to, her older brother, who had another one last summer. Little Riley came along. I was like, Corey, 5 kids in 8 years. You need to slow down, son. No, Dad. I'm going to have a soccer team, yo. What? A soccer team, Corey? Here, the problem is you own this soccer team. You're buying cleats. You're buying uniforms. This is going to get expensive. Slow down on the kids. And 3 months ago, Maria calls my wife. I'm pregnant again. Corey, what are you going to have, a JV squad too? This is ridiculous. 3 days later, she calls. It's twins again. My wife's like, you want to talk to your son? Oh, no, I don't want to talk to that kid. I'm never talking to him again. He's your son now. Just kidding. I'm going to have 8 grandkids. Corey's going to have 7 kids. See, you might not understand this, but I mean this. What I'm about to tell you, I mean to my core. Every 8th grader in this room, I sacrifice like crazy being away from home all the time because I'm fighting for that little kid. And every single 8th grader in this room, you mean as much to me as he does. I mean it. You mean as much to me as my grandkids. I don't know any of you, and every one of you mean as much to me as they do because I'm fighting for them like I'm fighting for you. So I want you to remember who you are because right now, this point of your life is the most important time of your entire life, and you're not paying attention, and you're being lied to. The reason I came to give you some truth is because your generation's being straight up lied to, and your government has failed you. Success and failure is right in the palm of your hands. When you walk into this building every day, these amazing educators have what you need for you to become successful. And I'm begging you to pay attention. I'm begging you to treat your life a little bit more importantly than you did the day before. And I'm asking you to understand your choices. You've got to make the right ones. And getting involved in drugs and alcohol is not the right ones. I can't go back and change what happened to me. I know exactly where my life changed when my parents got divorced. Not because they got divorced, but because I pushed a counselor away. She could have helped me deal with what was going on. Not one of your friends whose parents are divorced, it's their fault. It's not their fault. Raise your hand if you have a friend whose parents have struggled with drug addiction. Raise your hand. High, so I could see him. See, you need to look around. You're not alone. Raise your hand if you have a friend whose family has struggled with addiction. Look around. You're not alone. You've got to understand this is not your fault. You're the generation that has to end addiction. And it starts with the choices and the decisions that you're making right now. Now, you're the leaders of this school. You got only a couple more months left of 8th grade, 5 months, 6 months. You're about to transition. And 8th to 9th grade is the most important transition of your entire life. And you're not paying attention. You're worth it. It's why they let me come here today. It's why I came here today. When I was not much older than you, I had a disease. It was called "it can't happen to meism." See, I had people tell me that the path I was on was going to lead to destruction. And I didn't think it would happen to me. I didn't think it was going to be my story. Well, my story became that story. And that's not where I was supposed to end up. That wasn't supposed to be my story. And 12 years of my life, I spent in a prison cell. The last 4 years was in that very cell. That's not where I should have ended up. And my wife was without her husband. My kids were without their father because of my drug addiction. And my drug addiction began at the age of 11 with nicotine. I didn't think it was a big deal with alcohol. I didn't think it was a big deal with marijuana. I didn't think it was a big deal. Looking back, I know exactly what kind of deal it was. And so now I interview people. I make documentary films. And I've interviewed 10,000 addicts, 10,000 people that have struggled with addiction and have ended up in prison or jail. 10,000. And I've asked every single one of them where it began. And 90% of them told me the same thing. Okay, 90% of them told me the exact same thing. I lost my freedom. Millions and millions and millions of adults have lost their freedom, and 90% is because of addiction. And 90% started just like I did, between 10 and 17, alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana. You want to wear handcuffs when you get older? That's cool. Wear them on your belt, you see. That comes with a pension, okay? That's where you wear cuffs, not on your wrist. You want to see this? You grow up to be a corrections officer. So you go home at the end of your shift, okay? And you don't want to lose your life until you have a long and healthy and prosperous life. You don't want to lose it in your 20s and your 30s. And it's happening all across our country. And vaping and respiratory disease is going to become the #1 cause of death in America. And for the last 4 years, I've been talking to people about this, and people haven't been paying attention. So this right here, as I said multiple times already, this is the most important time of your life, right here and right now, and I'm begging you to listen to me. This is the most important time of your life. I made a documentary movie. It was my first film. I made it in 2012. I take 10 months to make it, and I went out on the streets of a city near where I lived called Camden, New Jersey. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Camden, New Jersey. I walked down the street. I was carrying 2 tripods, earphones around my neck, and I was looking for someone who was hooked on heroin. It took me about 30 seconds. So I walked over to her. Her name's Christina. I said, "Hey, how you doing?" She goes, "Good, how you doing?" I go, "Well, I'm looking for a story." She was living in this abandoned house right here. She goes, "What do you mean a story?" I said, "Well, I'm obviously making a film. I go to schools all over the country, and I talk to kids about drugs. And I want to give them something real. Not the DARE program or just say no. I want to give kids something real. So I'm making a film. And I'm looking for someone who is hooked on prescription pills out in the suburbs, and now they're homeless on the streets of Camden, hooked on heroin." She goes, "That was my story." And I said, "Well, would you tell me your story?" "I'm going into schools, and I'm talking to kids about drugs." She goes, "Here, why don't you show kids this?" I don't know how old she looks to you in this picture. She's 21. She died 9 months later of a heroin overdose. 3 years earlier, she walked across her high school graduation stage to accept salutatorian of her graduating class. What place is salutatorian? Second place. Second in her high school. She graduated with a full scholarship to Temple University. She became a cheerleader for the Temple Owls. She fell off a pyramid at a football game. She fractured her tailbone. They put her on unlimited pain medication, more pain medication, more pain medication. And that pain medication turned to heroin, and heroin took her life. 9 months after I interviewed her, she died of a heroin overdose. See, I went out in 10 months and I interviewed 137. 121 of them had the same story Christine did. Some dentist, some doctor gave him some pain medication for a rotator cuff tear, a wisdom tooth coming out, a sprained ankle. Here, pain medication. Not everybody who gets pain medication becomes a heroin addict, and not every heroin addict started with pain medication. Just 3 out of 4. I found out it was 88%. 121 out of my 137 people that I interviewed started with pain medication. But when I asked them to dig deeper, when I asked them to tell me about childhood, 100% of them, 137 out of 137, they had 3 things in common. Everyone used tobacco, nicotine, everyone used alcohol, and everyone used marijuana. Every one of them. I was like, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. So, I'm not here to talk to you about drugs. I want to tell you about how drugs affect your body, and more importantly, your brain. And the 3 drugs that you guys think are a joke, the 3 drugs that you all raised your hand and laughed about, the 3 drugs that America thinks is no big deal are alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana. See, THC is a psychoactive molecule in the cannabis plant, and it's the only molecule that gets you high. It's why Michigan and Illinois and 10 other stupid states of stupid leaderships legalize marijuana with a complete indifference to you. Again, I don't talk about 21 year of age people and older. What they do as adults, I don't have an opinion. If adults have trouble, if adults need help, if adults need treatment, man, I'll help anybody. 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, I don't care. I'll answer my phone, I'll help anybody. I'll go to the ends of the earth for anyone who needs help with addiction. But I don't tell adults how to be adults. 20 years and younger, 100%, I'm begging you, not asking, I'm begging you to stay away from it. Stay away from all drugs. But these 3 drugs, you guys don't think it's a big deal. Alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana. So we made a little video about it, the truth about drugs.
They said
If I got drunk,
if I did coke,
I'd be one of the guys.
They said meth would help me get through my exams.
They said sniffing glue was no big deal.
Totally safe.
I could party all night.
They said heroin would be the best high I ever had.
It would help me forget my problems.
He said he'd love me forever if I smoked crack with him.
They said I wouldn't get hooked after the first hit.
They said that Ritalin would help me focus.
They said weed wouldn't lead to harder drugs.
They lied.
They lied.
They lied.
He lied.
Find out the truth about drugs.
Drugfreeworld.org.
Drugfreeworld.org.
So the truth about drugs is that they're a lie, and I'm not talking about if your name is on the prescription bottle, you got medication from a doctor, you take it under the guidance of your parents. That's not what I'm talking about. But what happens if some other kid wants to share some prescription that's prescribed to some older person or someone else, and they want to share it with you? Is that good or bad? So it's okay if it's prescribed for you, but it's not prescribed for you. That's not a good thing. And that's one of the biggest killers in this country, prescription medication, that people are using and misusing and overusing and abusing. Drugs are a lie, an absolute lie. And 90% of every person of the 10,000 of all the people I've met, including myself, 90% start as a teenager and start with 3 things: alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana. So I want to tell you something. That right there was the strategy of the tobacco industry. And you don't remember this because your grandparents' and parents' generation was targeted by the tobacco industry. They lied and they targeted kids. See that? They targeted kids. And they're doing the exact same thing all over again, except they're doing it to you. You are being targeted by the tobacco industry. Wait a minute. No, the vaping industry. Oh, guess what? They're the same exact people. How many of y'all have heard that vaping is safer than cigarettes? How many of y'all heard that before? How many of y'all heard that vaping was invented to help people quit smoking? How many of y'all heard one JUUL pod was equivalent to 1 pack of cigarettes? Wow. 1 JUUL pod's 4 packs of cigarettes, so you know. 1 JUUL pod is the nicotine equivalent of 4 packs of cigarettes. I love when y'all look at each other when I say that, because I know exactly why you're looking at each other. 1 pod is the nicotine equivalent of 4 packs of cigarettes, because I don't know if you know this, JUULs, they don't use nicotine. Huh? Yeah, JUULs don't use nicotine. They use nicotine salts. It's raw nicotine. It's not nicotine, it's raw nicotine. It's not chemically processed nicotine, it's raw nicotine salts. And it's 4 times the potency of nicotine, and it's addictive, and it's causing problems. But anyway, let me take you back to 1994. Congress held some hearings, and they called the top 7 CEOs of the top 7 tobacco companies to Washington. And they asked them some questions in a hearing on the tobacco industry. And in 1994, there was a 7-seat table, and it was filled with the 7 CEOs from the top 7 tobacco companies in America. And this was the question that they asked them. Watch this.
Yes or no? Do you believe nicotine is not addictive?
I believe nicotine is not addictive, yes.
Mr. Johnston.
Congressman, cigarettes and nicotine clearly do not meet the classic definitions of addiction.
I don't believe that nicotine or our products are addictive.
I believe nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
And I too believe that nicotine is not addictive.
So, did they lie? Did they lie? They lied straight to their teeth. Do you remember them? No, you know why you don't remember them? You weren't here in 1994. You weren't here. We remember them. See, our generation, we watched them lie. We watched them lie on live C-SPAN TV, and we're like, what are they talking about? You guys look at them and are like, of course they lied. Well, they're lying to you. I made a second movie after kids are dying called An American Epidemic. I went to 30 states. I interviewed 500 parents who lost their kid to an overdose of drugs. I came to Michigan for over a month. 26 of my 500 people were from Michigan. I went to 30 states. Michigan was one of the worst. And I asked every single parent who buried their kids to an overdose of drugs, before the age of 18, did your son or daughter drink alcohol? Yes. Did they smoke weed? Yes. Did they smoke, vape, or chew? Yes. 500 out of 500. When I was filming this movie, I found myself in Colorado, and I found out what was going on with marijuana legalization. And I made a movie about it. If every person in Michigan saw this movie, they wouldn't have voted on marijuana legalization. This is on YouTube. You guys can watch it. It's 54 minutes of truth. Marijuana X. When I was filming this movie, I came across these little vape vials right here in a dispensary. And the sign next to the vials said liquid weed. And I said to the kid behind the counter, yo, what's liquid weed? He goes, now you can vape weed, dude, and it's potent. I go, what? And 23-year-old Sean, my cameraman right there, says, Mike, you know, it'd be real funny if I vaped it, got all high, and you guys recorded how stupid I look. I said, no, that sounds stupid, no. The next day, he got all the kids on the film crew on his side, and they harassed me all day. Come on, Mike, it'll be funny, put it in the movie. I said, no. So finally, they said they were gonna do it themselves. So I supervised. And Sean vaped it, and 2 minutes after he vaped it, he's rolling around on the floor and he's in full convulsions. And all the kids are looking at him and they're laughing hysterically. They think it's funny. I walk over and I pull him back. He's not in convulsions. He's in a grand mal seizure. He's bleeding down his chin. He's chewing his tongue off. He's chewing his lips. And he's in a full-blown seizure. So I freak out and I call 911. When the paramedics got there, they're like, what's he on? What's going on? It's weed. They said it's liquid weed. They're like, no. They rushed him to the hospital. They had to intubate him in the ambulance because he'd stopped breathing. He had a massive stroke. That 23-year-old kid had a massive stroke. He had irreversible brain damage. And 4.5 to 5 years later now, he hasn't uttered a single word. He lives with his 67-year-old mother in Santa Clarita, California, who flew to Colorado to take him home. He doesn't bathe himself, feed himself, or clothe himself. He's almost in a vegetative state. That 23-year-old kid's life was affected, and I bought the vials at a store. We bought the vials at a store, okay? So we took the vials to the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and they tested it for me, and I got 2 reports back. One report showed the e-juice chemicals. There was 16 of them. 16 chemicals in the juice. And the THC report was 87% pure. The THC marijuana in the liquid was 87% pure. Okay, so what you guys don't understand is the largest vapor company in the world is called R.J. Reynolds Vapor. They're the largest tobacco company in the world. How is the largest tobacco company in the world the largest vapor company in the world if this was invented to help people quit smoking? It wasn't. The second largest tobacco company in the world, the third largest tobacco company in the world is Altria. And they own JUUL Labs. They're the second largest vaping company in the world. So, I don't care what device we're talking about, whether you buy juice or make juice, whether you have pods. Every single device on earth has 3 components in it. There's a reservoir at the bottom where the juice goes, or a wax pod takes its place. There's a power source, generally it's a battery. And then there's the atomizer. And the atomizer is the key. The atomizer takes the liquid or the wax and it heats it up to between 200 and 400 degrees Fahrenheit, so it can aerosol into your lungs. When it aerosols into your lungs, it becomes a chemical compound. It becomes a volatile organic compound. It becomes a toxin. It's no longer the juices and the vitamin E acetate and the propylene glycol and the vegetable glycerine and the diacetyl. It's now a chemical compound when it enters your lungs. The tobacco industry knew exactly what they were doing. They told everybody that this was invented to help people quit smoking, and that's a lie. Now I'm going to show you something that none of you have ever seen. You've never seen this. That's called an IQOS. That's open, that's closed. It was invented 12 years ago by Philip Morris Tobacco Company. When you light a cigarette, you take that butane lighter out and you light it, and it burns the cigarette. It burns the paper, it burns the tobacco. Some of the butane, some of the burnt paper, some of the burnt tobacco goes into your lungs. When it goes into your lungs, it goes in as a carcinogen, as a poison, a cancer-causing carcinogen. Well, the IQOS was invented 12 years ago, and you take your cigarette and you put it in the device, and it heats it. It doesn't burn it. So there's no butane going in your lungs. There's no burnt paper or burnt carcinogen, or burnt tobacco going into your lungs. There is carcinogens going in your lungs. It will still be the #1 cause of death in America. It's not safe. It's just safer. But if it's safer, why didn't they put it into the market? I'll tell you why. When I showed you that hearing in 1994, 54% of adult America smoked cigarettes. When they invented that, 21% of adult Americans smoked cigarettes. The market wasn't big enough, so they knew what they needed to do. How did they hook smokers first? They hooked kids. So that's what they did all over again. Flavor was never a part of the electronic device. Never was supposed to be flavored. Well, they flavored it so they could target you. And you guys think since there's no tar, no ash, no smell, no smoke, there's no problem. There's a big problem. So I'm going to show you something. 32%, according to the federal government. That's what the federal government says. 32% of high school kids are vaping. Is it higher or lower than that? Higher or lower? They say 13% of you are vaping. Higher or lower? What would your parents say? Oh, whoa. Raise your hand if you think your parents would say it was higher. Raise your hand if your parents would say it was lower. Raise your hand if you have a friend who's vaping or JUULing and their parents know all about it. Their parents have no problem with it. Really? Raise your hand if you have a friend whose parents don't have any idea that your friend's vaping or JUULing. Half and half. Okay. So tobacco use is at its lowest rate in 2 decades because you're the smartest generation that's ever lived. You guys stopped smoking. The American Lung Association's been tracking high school smokers for over 20 years. Look, that red line has been plummeting. In 2011, the JUUL hit the market. They spent $1 billion in 2 years marketing that thing. And this line started going straight up. In 2014, it went off the chart. They don't even they don't even have this chart anymore. So, I'm gonna show you something. My friend comes over to my house. He's got his 14-year-old kid with him. He's got his 17-year-old kid with him, Jason. And he puts those 3 bottles on my sofa. And I said, where'd you get that? He goes, Jason got it in the mail today, UPS. I said, are you gonna ground him for the rest of his life? He said, no, it's kind of my fault. I told him when he turned 17, he could get a vape. I said, you did what? He said, you know his 2 older brothers smoke, Michael. I was trying to keep this kid off cigarettes. And vaping is safer. No, you're wrong. Vaping is not safer. Let me show you something. The bottle on the left is called propylene glycol. The bottle on the right is called vegetable glycerine. Every student and staff member in this room, you've consumed both of those ingredients in the last 48 hours. It's food additives. It's in 80% of our processed food and our fast food in America. 80% of our food in America contain both of those ingredients as food additives. The federal government says they're safe. I said to him, look at the top of the bottle. They got squirt tops on it. That's because they want the customer to squirt the juice into the canister to make their own e-juice. But look at the bottle in the middle. There's no squirt top on that bottle. I told him that's because that's a poison. That's 48 milliliters of liquid nicotine. That's a poison. There's no squirt top on it because in the kits, they either give you eye droplets or syringes to put maybe 5 droplets of liquid nicotine into your juice canister. Jason, did they give you eye droplets or syringes? I asked him. He goes, here you go, Mike. I'll pull it up on your laptop and show you. And there's the kit he got. He got syringes, canisters, reservoir, stopper, mixer, 10 flavors, and his chemicals. I said, Jason, what are the rubber gloves for? You don't want to get liquid nicotine on your hands, Mike. It's dangerous. But you're vaping it. He goes, yeah, but liquid nicotine is safe on the inside of your body. It's just not safe on the outside of your body. I said, excuse me, do they teach biology at your high school? He goes, yeah, I took biology last year. You did? Do you remember what you got as a grade? Yeah, I got a D. Shocking. Dad, how did this little scientist get a D in biology? It just doesn't make any sense to me, right? Yeah. So that's the Surin. That came with nicotine. Now it comes with marijuana. Every pen on that screen came with nicotine or non-nicotine pods or juices, right? And now they all come with whatever you want to put in it. And the JUUL. I want to show you something. This is the worst thing that ever happened to your generation. I mean it. Those pods, okay? Those pods all contain nicotine salts. Not nicotine, not freebase nicotine, nicotine salts. It more closely resembles the natural structure of nicotine found on the leaves. It's raw, and it crosses the blood-brain barrier. Nicotine doesn't. Nicotine salts do. And now this is 80% of the market of nicotine, the salts, right? Ask your science teacher if you could do an extra credit paper on nicotine salts. Is that the science teacher right there? Oh man, he's the smartest guy in the room. I guarantee you he'll let you do it. Ask him all about the blood-brain barrier. He'll tell you. The blood-brain barrier protects the brain. Nicotine salts cross it. So you're gonna have learning problems. You're gonna have memory problems. You're gonna have concentration problems. And I'm gonna tell you something else. I don't usually share this with 8th graders, but I feel you guys are mature enough. Young men, please listen to me. If you haven't listened to anything else I've said to you, please listen to me. In every JUUL pod, in every marijuana liquid or pod, in every single nicotine salt pod, there's a chemical called benzoic acid. In most vaping devices like the Blue and the Enjoy, it's between 0.2 and 2 milligrams a milliliter. In the JUUL pod, in any THC or nicotine salt pod, it's over, but it's a minimum of 44.8 milligrams a milliliter. When benzoic acid enters the body between 200 and 400 degrees Fahrenheit, it becomes a chemical compound that's 18 letters long. I can't even pronounce the word. But the part of the body it affects the most is the reproductive system. See, you guys are going to be sitting here in your 20s and your 30s, married, and you want to start that family. And you and Boo trying to get that family going, it's not working out. So you're going to go off to the doctor, and he's going to sit you and your girl down. And the doctor's going to give y'all some bad news. And that bad news, there's no coming back from that bad news. We're going to have an infertility crisis in America that your generation is going to experience. I'm watching TV late at night, right? And I see these lawyers come on TV. And they're like, did you or a loved one get asbestos poisoning, mesothelioma? Did you or a loved one get non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for using Roundup in your garden? Did you or a loved one get cancer from Zantac? Did you or a loved one get cancer from Just for Men hair color? See, all these products that these companies put out there, and they absolutely knew that it caused cancer, but they did it anyway. That's what's going to happen with this. See, I started buying flavored pods overseas from China because I knew that the federal government was going to have to ban flavored pods. If the federal government bans flavored pods, will that keep flavored pods out of your hands? Yes or no? Okay, so they flavored this for a reason. They wanted to target you. And your federal government, I'm sorry, under the Obama administration, under the Trump administration, they have failed you. The FDA has failed you. They've allowed, Congress has allowed, Republicans and Democrats have allowed the tobacco industry to hook a next generation. I know you guys aren't experts, I really do, but I really want your opinion. In your opinion, do you know a middle school or high school kid who's vaping or JUULing and you really believe they're addicted to it? Raise your hand if you think you know a kid who's addicted to it. Now, if that's true, we have a problem. So I'm gonna show you something. You guys have heard a lot about lung damage and respiratory disorders, and I'm not gonna get into the statistics because they change from week to week, but you're gonna start hearing about cardiovascular disease, reproductive disease, hindered brain development, circulatory system disorders. You're gonna start hearing about kids having strokes and heart attacks in their late teens and early 20s because of this. So I'm gonna show you something. This right here is how everyone in America died in 2017. That's the #1 cause, heart disease. #2 is cancer. #3 is respiratory disorders. Respiratory disorders. You ever see that commercial on TV where the grandfather's playing Little Red Riding Hood puppets with his granddaughter, and he goes, and he huffed, and he puffed, and the little girl goes, like you do sometimes, Grandpa? So Grandpa so tenderly explains to his little granddaughter how he suffers from what? COPD. I'm going to show you a picture of a kid named Mark, 31 years of age. He died 11 months ago. His mom gave me his picture, and she said, do you promise to show this to every kid in America? I said, yes, ma'am, I do. This is Mark. It's not his face, it's his lung. His name's blocked out here. And the note from the doctor that said, lung is evidence of 50 years of cigarette smoking. 50 years. He was 31. He vaped for 14 months. He died of acute respiratory distress syndrome. That's COPD. They nickname it popcorn lung. There's another variation called bronchiolitis obliterans. This is on a website for a company where he bought all of his juice. He only vaped one juice and one flavor, blueberry. He never vaped THC. He never vaped black market stuff. He vaped for 14 months, and he died at the age of 31. Now, I know you all have heard about a month ago that JUUL shipped out 1 million contaminated mint pods. Who heard that in the news? 1 million contaminated mint pods. So you will hear in the next 60 days, it wasn't 1 million contaminated mint pods. They shipped out 10 million contaminated pods of every flavor. This happened 3 weeks ago. It was in Australia. They stopped the shipment of Sriracha hot sauce bottles coming to California. But it didn't have Sriracha hot sauce in it. It had liquid crystal meth. $210 million of liquid crystal meth. It wasn't put in a liquid form so they could smuggle it. It was put in a liquid form so it could go into vaping devices. I have 36 articles in the last 90 days of kids that have gotten into trouble with vaping drugs. This is one. 12-year-old and a 14-year-old in Morgantown, West Virginia, they were rushed to the hospital. And you know what they had in their vape? Heroin and meth. Did they know it? I don't know. But a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old going to the hospital with heroin and methamphetamine in their vapes, this is just the beginning. You know, I was sitting there watching the news with my wife last year, and we were watching the TV, and I go, hold on, did he just say kids are eating Tide Pods? Did he just say that, right? And I got into the research. I couldn't believe it. You're putting a poisonous detergent in your mouth and you're eating it, and then some kid makes a video about it and other kids want to follow, and you're like, what? Putting a vape to your mouth and ingesting liquid or wax into your respiratory system is the same silly, stupid thing. And it will, absolutely will, affect your health. Maybe a little, maybe a lot. Okay, so like I said, this is a dank tank, very popular. And this is 100% pure THC in a liquid, but there's over 20 chemicals in there. And when you turn the package around, none of them are listed on the ingredients. You know why? No one's regulating it. They could put whatever they want in it. I was intrigued how they were making the concentrates and the liquids. So I went to a place in Denver and I was allowed to take pictures. That guy's holding a 3-foot Pyrex tube. They put them in these machines from floor to ceiling. They fill it with marijuana, and then they put a big wall up to this side, and they hook up to these brackets, and they blast butane or propane through that tube, and what comes out the other side is this. So that's 84%, 87%, 97% THC concentrate. They call that marijuana. That's not marijuana. They nickname it earwax and butter and shatter, call it marijuana. That's not marijuana. This right here, that's 100% pure THCA crystalline. That's not marijuana, but they're defining it as marijuana. They say it's marijuana, and they're selling it. If you're an adult and you want to ingest this, I think it's the dumbest thing you could ever do. But what I care about is you. I care about kids. I don't want you to touch it. I don't want you to touch it. They're putting it in these lollipops and these suckers and gummy bears and all sorts of drinks, and you have no idea what's in it because the health department is not regulating it. So, like I said, I know you guys aren't experts, but most of you raise your hand that you know a kid who's addicted to this. If that's a problem, you've got to go to your counselor. You have to go to a counselor. You have to ask for help. You have to ask for help. Every day I do these presentations, I ask kids, 8th grade and older. After we're done, I'm going to be around. I'm going to be in the lunchroom. I'll talk to you guys. I want you guys, if you have a vape, you want to get rid of it, come give it to me. I'll get rid of it for you. Someone walked up to your principal and handed him a pod just right after the 7th grade, 6th grade presentation. You got a bottle, you got a pod, you got a vape you want to get rid of, come give it to me. I have over 1,700 of them. I'll take them. Give them to me. If you don't want to give it to me, go to your counselor. You have counselors in this building. They care about you. You go give it to her. You say, I think I have a problem. They'll help you. We will help you. I won't stop. I'm helping hundreds of families all across this country. Get rid of it. New Jersey makes an announcement in August that they had 9 cases of lung disease. Now they have 1,600. New York makes an announcement August that they had 11 cases. Now they have 2,500. The federal government said we have 100 possible cases. 100? Now they have over 8,000. This is very real, and it's going to get worse. And the only hope we have is you. You've got to listen to me. See this kid right here? He didn't listen to me. In September, I went to a school in Pennsylvania. I guess after I did it, he didn't think I was serious. So he told his friend the next day I didn't know what I was talking about, and he wanted to go vape. His friend had a smoke, a commercial device, and he met him in the bathroom, and he vaped it. And as soon as he did, he got dizzy, and he passed out on the floor. When he passed out on the floor, what did the other kid who brought the vape to the bathroom do? He what? He left. Could someone tell me why he left? He didn't want to get caught with it. He didn't want to get in trouble, so he split. So forget your friend, man. He's on his own, right? Is that a friend? Okay, so he lays on the bathroom for 20 minutes till the school resource officer found him. He was in a coma for 3 days. He's in a behavioral health center in Pennsylvania. He's not coming back to school. Like, I'm working on a movie called Vaping Me Crazy. It's a documentary. I just interviewed his mother. He's not going back to school. He had a violent reaction to nicotine addiction, nicotine allergy. And sometimes kids say, well, I've already vaped and I don't have an allergy. You don't know. That was his first time. I'm dealing with like 12 other kids who developed a nicotine allergy. It's really, really bad. So the cognitive function of your brain is so important as it's developing right now. Your psychological capacity, I need you to understand your skill acquisition, your communication, your knowledge, your creativity. While you're growing right now, this 8th grade to 9th grade transition is the most important. And you guys are the leaders of this school. You guys have to stop. And you guys have to be the generation that get rid of it. You're the only hope we have. And these 6th grade and 7th grade kids are looking up to you. How many of y'all got little brothers and little sisters? How many of y'all got little brothers and little sisters 5th grade and younger? Raise your hand if you'd be okay with your 5th grade and younger kid, little brother or sister vaping. Nobody would be okay with that. That's good. So, 90% of drug and alcohol abusers started when they're a teenager. And that's where you are right here and right now. So I want to give you something. How many of y'all watch Shark Tank on TV? The best show you could ever watch in your life is Shark Tank, okay? Best show you could ever watch. Damon John is one of the sharks. He's a friend of mine. He's a good guy. He owns a company in Plano, Texas called Success Corporation. And they started a foundation called Success for Teens. And they were making a booklet to help teens become successful. And I was handing them out all over the country. There's 8 chapters. They're amazing, right? And so I can't hand out the books anymore because I'm in 50 states. I'm seeing over 1 million students every year. So when he found out about that, he gave it to me digitally. He said, here, give every kid in America the digital access to that book. So we put it on our website. It's 176 pages. And I know you guys don't want more homework. This isn't homework. This is life work. I don't care what you want to be when you grow up. This will help you be more successful. Our website is steeredstraight.org. It'll be on the banner that's going to hang in the school. And you can always go to our website and download this. I'd love you to work on it with your parents or guardians because there's a facilitator's guide in there for parents and kids. 8 chapters. This will absolutely make you more successful at anything you ever want to do in your life. And I'm asking you to download it and help yourself become more successful. How many of y'all are on Instagram? Okay, so Instagram, Steered Straight, S-T-E-E-R-E-D, S-T-R-A-I-G-H-T. Follow Steered Straight. And what a girl in our office does every week is she picks 2 people, and she sees if 2 people that have tagged us, either stay in your lane, which is my favorite saying, stay in your lane, or drug-free world, or vape-free. But if you tag Steered Straight and she sees it and the image is positive, she picks 2 people every week, and we give this $150 GameStop, Subway, Walmart, Amazon. It's unbelievable. All this stuff in this gift, she picks 2 people every week and she sends it out to them. So I'm trying to encourage you to use social media in a positive way. And this is one of the ways that we can reward you or follow after you. Follow Steered Straight today. And usually when someone adds on, she picks 2 people that just added on. Follow Steered Straight today. I want to see that you're using social media in a positive way. I'm asking you to please, want to give it to me, the vape, the juice, the pod, give it to me. You want to give it to an adult in this building, you will not get in trouble. If you go to your principal, if you go to your counselor and say, here, I want to get rid of this. I thought about it. I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to get rid of it. You won't get in trouble. You absolutely won't get in trouble. If you go and ask for help, you won't get in trouble. They will help you. They will help you. Please, you're the leaders of this school, and you've got to be the leaders that you are. And this is the most important transition that you're about to make between 8th and 9th grade. Please, what you do at 21, I don't have an opinion. I wish you'd wait till you're 28, okay, or 30. The brain doesn't fully develop until you're in your late 20s. My wife says for men it's 56, so I'll be there next year. But every single one of you, Your brains are developing. Please don't hinder the development of your brain with nicotine, alcohol, marijuana, or any other drug, but I wanted to focus on those three, especially nicotine. So I just got a couple of minutes. I want to see if anyone has a question. Anyone has a question about anything I said, you can ask me any question. Usually it's a girl that asks the first question because girls are smarter than boys. Oh, no, there we go. Yes, sir. So, wow, that's one of the best questions ever. I'm serious. Is zero nicotine safe? No, it's not, because the same chemicals that are in nicotine is the same chemicals that are in juices. Propylene glycol, vegetable glycerine, diacetyl, vitamin E acetate. When those chemicals heat up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, they still penetrate the respiratory system. Vitamin E acetate is really prevalent in nicotine, zero nicotine, and when that goes into the lungs as an aerosol, it turns into a lipid oil when it goes in the lungs, and it does not come out. So over time, you vape nicotine-free juice, your lungs will really get affected. Absolutely not safe. And again, I'm talking for 20 years and younger. I'm telling you it's not safe for anybody, but I'm focusing on you. Yes, sir, in the blue. Okay, the raw nicotine, the chemical, off the tobacco plant, grown in Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, Virginia. The tobacco plant, nicotine comes off the tobacco plant. How old are my kids? Corey's 32, Kayla's 30 years of age, and I'm 29. Oh, no, wait, I'm 55. Oh, God. Good question. Anybody else? Yes. So that's a great question. How many people died from vaping? They have no idea. They're exhuming bodies right now. People who have died in the last 3 years, they're bringing people up from the ground to go look at them and study them again that died of respiratory disease. But the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has identified 86 people that have died from vaping. That's just who they've studied, but they're looking at over 8,000 cases. So it will become the #1 cause of death in America, because we're not going to just be vaping nicotine. They're going to vape heroin. They're going to vape fentanyl. They're going to vape meth. They're going to vape cocaine. They're going to vape every drug on earth in a vape pen. It's going to be bad. You're the only generation that can stop this. You're the only hope we have. You got to put it down now. Good questions. Anybody else? Nobody else has a question? Yes. Wow, that's a really good question. So here's the fact about secondhand smoke. It's deadly from a cigarette. Sometimes people think vaping is safer. It's not. Because when those chemicals go in the body, they come out as the carcinogens that go in, so there's little chemicals. Plus, 90% of every vape device is made in China. China puts lead in every single vape that they make, every single metal that they make. So if you vape any device that's made in China, which is 90% of them, little tiny molecular particles of lead are entering your respiratory system. And you will see that long term. Adults that are vaping are going to see lead poisoning, going to see metal poisoning and heavy metal poisoning. That's going to be one of the causes of death. But secondhand smoke out of a vape is no safer than secondhand smoke for a cigarette. It's just as harmful. Secondhand vape is just as harmful as secondhand smoke. Yes. Can you die from cigarettes if you don't inhale? So I don't know how you could use it with it not inhaling. No, it's a good question. I don't know how you can use it without inhaling. Like, if you just, that's a good question, and I probably can't answer that accurately, but if you're not inhaling, why would you even want to use a cigarette in the first place? I guess in a movie, and you want to do a scene with a cigarette, you don't inhale it. I don't know why else you would not inhale it. But I don't think you can die if you don't inhale it, but I don't think you should use it at all, because why take the chance? Good question, though. Yes, anyone else? Yes, sir. I can't hear you. What happens if you eat weed? If you eat it in an edible, or you just eat it just eat the plant? So it could cause just contaminated problems to the stomach and the esophagus and to the gastrointestinal system, because here's the problem. Now, 90% of all weed in America has contaminants on it, pesticides on it. So burning it sometimes will take care of some of that contaminants and mold, but eating it won't. So you can have serious stomach infections and gastrointestinal infections from eating marijuana plant. And you don't want to eat it anyway. It's stupid to eat it. You're not going to get any benefit from it whatsoever. And you're not going to get high off of it if you eat it. You're just going to risk problems. And then it won't digest. It really won't digest well in your intestinal system, and it'll affect in your stomach, and it'll affect your intestinal system. It's really bad to eat weed. And in edibles, there's nobody testing the edibles. So I'm not going to tell adults about edibles, but for kids, absolutely, you do not want to eat any kind of edible at all. 21 years of age and younger. Yes. Okay, ask me that one more time. You don't. You absolutely don't. You absolutely don't. It's a great question. But I mean, the people who are putting THC in edibles, they want to sell it as THC edible. They're not going to just try to trick people. I mean, yeah, somebody can do that, make stuff and bring it and hand it out, but it's not going to be in the commercial food supply. They're just not going to do that. They're going to put edibles and tell you that marijuana is in it. They want you to know marijuana is in it. They think it's good. They think they're making money on it. They want you to know that the edible contains marijuana. So they're not going to put, like, you're not going to go to the store and just buy a product, you know, Little Debbie's, and there's going to be weed in it. It's not going to happen because the food chain got tested. The marijuana food chain is not. So they're not going to try to trick people individually at a party or something like that. That's a different story. But that's why I always tell girls, don't you ever let anybody hand you a bottle or a drink that's open, ever. At a party or something like that. When you get into high school and college, don't you ever take a drink from someone that's the bottle's open or they give you an open drink. It's just at a party. It's not good. Yes. What would be safe? If you made your own edibles. Again, that's a good question. As adults, I'm not going to have an opinion. As kids, even if you made homemade edibles, no, it's absolutely not safe. THC on the developing body and the developing brain is 100% unsafe. 20 years and younger. So 21 years of age and older, I'm not going to have an opinion on what they do. But for kids, 100%, I don't care what the edible is. Kids should not eat edibles at all. Yes? Why don't they just what? Why don't they just legalize drugs? So why did they do that? Why did they make... I'm hearing two different questions. So did you ask me why did they legalize drugs? Fully illegal. Vaping? Nicotine? Okay, money. They won't do it. They won't do it. They'll never do it. So here's what's going to happen. Just yesterday, Congress passed a law out of committee. It's going to go to the House for a vote. And they're going to make all states 21 and older. How old do you have to be to buy vape in Michigan? 18. So it will be 21. I was in South Dakota yesterday. It was 18. I was in California the day before. It was 21. In New Jersey, it's 21. In Tennessee, it's 18. I think there's 14 states that's 21. The rest of them are 18. The federal government is going to make it 21 years of age and older for everyone. So, you know, why don't they make it illegal? It is illegal 18 years and younger for kids, and it's going to be 21 years of age and older. But I think the reason they won't do that is because of money. Yes? Is medical marijuana good? Okay, so here's a real controversial question. And it's my last question, but I'll be around at lunch and you can ask me anything that you want. So here's a good question. Actually, you know what? I'm going to show you. That was a good question. I'm going to show you something. You want to know about medical marijuana? This is what I'm going to show you. In 1960, the DEA started testing marijuana. There's only one molecule of marijuana that gets you high. It's called THC. Remember? Okay. There's 400 molecules in the cannabis plant. 400. We've only discovered about 60. In 1985, cannabidiol was discovered, CBD. Raise your hand if you've heard about CBD. Okay, 90% of the CBD that's sold out there in the country is garbage. It's contaminated and it's not even CBD. If we took CBD and we extracted it, the actual molecule, and had it tested and vetted and everything, it absolutely has medicinal benefits to it, 100%. In 2009, we discovered CBD2. In 2014, they discovered CBD3. Now there's CBV, CBG, CBH. Cannabidiol molecules have medicinal benefits 100%. I am 100% in favor of it. The problem is, that's not what they're selling out there. There's no such thing as medical marijuana. There's marijuana. People might use it for medical purposes. They might get a card to buy medical marijuana. But we don't smoke our medicine. Do you understand? So medical marijuana that's out there is not medical marijuana. It's just marijuana. If we harness it, the pharmaceutical industry, which I'm not a fan of the pharmaceutical industry, but they have a way to take CBD and put it into lozenges and drops and everything. Absolutely. That's the direction we need to go in. But everything that's out there selling as medical marijuana, it's just not. Now, if someone wants to smoke marijuana as an adult and say it's for medicine, I don't have an opinion. But all I'm talking about is kids. I don't want you to touch it. And if a kid needs to have medical lozenges and stuff like that from the pharmaceutical industry, I'm all for it. The problem is it's so expensive. And so you need to stay away from it. And you need to trust your doctor if some real doctor is recommending some sort of medical protocol, but it shouldn't be out in the stores. So that's the best way I can answer that question. And if you have other questions, I'll answer them in lunch. You guys have been one of the best audiences I've ever had. Thank you. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Again, I want to thank Mr. De Leon for coming to our school. And one of the reasons why we had him brought here is because of our concern over some of the things that you are unaware of and some of the things that are causing some harm to our young students and also our population, because people aren't educated about these types of chemicals that we're putting in our bodies. And because technology has actually improved over the years, these substances are becoming more and more difficult to get or address in your bodies, and also it's becoming more toxic for our kids. So we wanted to make sure that you understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. If someone's pressuring you to take something because they want to get you to be a part of their group. So we want you to understand the peer pressure aspect of it as well. So later on, Mr. De Leon will be in our lunch to answer any questions, but I want to encourage you to let your moms and dads know that tonight from 6 to 7 p.m., bring them here, because we want to make sure that they understand how these things impact not only their children, but also themselves and maybe some of the other people that they can spread the word to. So again, from 6 to 7 p.m. tonight. We are going to be going back to our 4th hours to get our things. If you have them, you're going to go back. You're going to be, once the bell rings, you'll be going to your 5th hour classes before lunch. But Mr. De Leon, he will be here for lunch, and he also has some literature that he has to provide you if you're interested in that information too. So we're going to go back to 4th hour very briefly. Once the bell rings, we'll go to 5th hour. Hold it one more time. One more thing. If you are an ETS student in 8th grade, ETS, I would like you to stay and invite you to stay, because we are going to get a photo with Mr. De Leon before you go back to your class.